back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Wave 2 Deluxe Class Stunticon Wild Rider. Before we take a look at the figure, let's take a look at the packaging. So of course up front here we have Wild Rider in his really cool looking race car mode with these huge blasters on the back of his car looking very cool. Of course we have the Legacy text, the Decepticon Wild Rider text as well, Transformers on the side. On that side here of course we do have the Legacy Decepticon artwork. On the back it transforms in 13 steps, of course a product shot of the robot and alt mode, and of course a barcode for his stats, and on the last side of course we do have two shots of artwork of his robot mode, and that's pretty much it for the packaging. Let's now get into it. We have Wild Rider in his really cool looking robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with that head sculpt. Some nice red for the face, some silverish purple for the eyes, and some gray for the main helmet section. I think that looks very geo and accurate, and I really do like the look of it. Getting to the chest, of course, some nice silver and blue for the chest, overall looking very cool. Some gray, really well sculpted. I actually really like this whole layered effect on the stomach. That looks very good. Also a really nice design detail. I'm not sure if this was intentional, but if you look at the legs here, you can actually pick out these almost oil canister design there. I'm really not sure if that was intentional, but it almost looks like that. Getting to the arms, of course, some nice red and gray, and of course more red and gray on the side, and you can actually pick out the mirrors on the back of the shoulder, which actually looks pretty cool. And also a really nice design is you can actually see the wheels, which look very cool with this gunmetal gray. Unfortunately, the back two are on mushroom pegs, which is unfortunate, but overall I think it looks pretty cool. And yes, one of the big complaints I've seen for this figure is the kibble. Yes, there is quite a bit of a backpack, but honestly, it doesn't bother me that much, because I actually did used to have the Commander War Stunticons, and those figures were pretty bad in comparison to this one, or Dragstrip, or Motormaster, so I can easily overlook this small problem in the robot mode compared to many problems with the Commander Wars version. Let's now get into articulations. The head can of course move left to right. Unfortunately, no up and down movement. The arm can move out and in. There is a swivel, of course a swivel up and down as well. There's also an elbow bend. Unfortunately, no hand rotation. The waist is on a swivel as well. All around, the leg can kick that far out, that far forward, and of course that far back. There is also a swivel, and a knee bend, and of course an ankle pivot. And this is really due to transformation, but you can actually kick the foot forward, not back. But overall, pretty good articulation. I kind of wish maybe the head could have some up and down movements, because that's pretty common for figures, but unfortunately this one does not have that. But overall, pretty standard articulation for Deluxe. Let's now get into the accessories. And this is another minor complaint of mine. I actually really do like them, but they are pretty much the exact same sculpt as drag strips, which seem kind of cheap in my opinion, so I wish they were a little bit different. But you can plug these into his hands like that if you want to, which does look pretty cool, but I kind of wish they got some of this silverish purple and put it on the legs, because the legs look very bare and plain and boring. Yes, that's pretty much accurate to the G1 show. Most of the figure was red and gray, and that was it. I don't even think there was blue on the figure or the character in the show, so that's really adding some color, but I wish maybe there was a little bit more. They could just, not go for 100% accuracy, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. But the blasters look pretty cool in his hands, and if you want to, you can actually combine them. It's the same feature that was a part of drag strips, so if you get both of them, there is a peg, and there is a ports on one, and you can just plug this in his hands, and you can have a sort of double blaster going on, which looks pretty cool, but I typically do store them separately. So I'm going to get them separately, plug them in his hands, and then we can get into some quick comparisons. Plug this in his hands like that, and there we go. So now for some quick comparisons, here he is with Dragstrip, the other Deluxe class that I have from the Stunticon line. And as you can see, the blasters are actually very similar in sculpt, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish they were different. Yes, of course, Dead End, the Stunticon that was most recently revealed, his blasters are actually very similar too, so I guess they're going for the whole Deluxe class theme of the blasters, that they're all very similar, which I guess is okay, just in my opinion. It seems kind of cheap, but overall, of course, at least the color scheme is different. But, as you can see, yes, Dragstrip does not have any back kibble pretty much whatsoever, so I can see why people are bothered by the major kibble on this figure, because even Motormaster doesn't even have any back kibble at all, so I can understand why people are bothered, but it doesn't bother me that much. And now for one last comparison, here he is with the leader of the Stunticons. Hopefully I can fit him in shot. Here is Motormaster, Dragstrip, and of course Wild Rider. And of the three, probably I would have to say Wild Rider is my least favorite. Not saying he's a bad figure. There is some problems, I would say, in the transformation, but as for robot mode, I highly recommend him. If you can easily overlook a small problem with the backpack, I would suggest you get the figure, because overall it is pretty good. And of course, these two are very solid figures, so it's hard to compete, you know. When all the figures are good, there has to be, of course, a bad one. But overall look very cool and next to each other. And let me know, of course, in the comment section down below which one is your favorite of the three here. Probably my favorite had to be Dragster, but of course that could be biased because he's always been my favorite Stunticon. Even in the Commander Wars, he was my favorite. And let's just take these two off to the side. And that's pretty much it for the comparison. Let's now get into transformation into the race car. Let's now get into transformation into the race car mode. So this is actually where I have the main problems with this figure. There's actually two areas where there could be breakage or stress marks or paint chipping that I do want to point out to you during the transformation. So do bear with me because this transformation could take a little bit more time because it's not, I would say, the most smooth or fun to do. So let's start off. So what you're going to do is fold up the feet like that. And this is actually one problem here. So there is a peg and of course there is a port on the foot, and this is supposed to tab into place. On my copy, unfortunately, they really do not tab in. Then what you're going to want to do is fold in the hands like that. Just fold that in. Same on the other arm, of course, just fold that in, and then you can go to the chest, bring the head out, and of course bring it in, tab that into place, and then you can just bring the arms in like that. Then we can go to the backpack here. You can extend this whole section out, make sure everything is aligned like that, and then you can, of course, you can see a ton of tabs on this car piece, and there's a ton of slots on the hood section. Make sure all that is aligned. It's actually very important this is all tabbed in because you really don't want to have to undo steps later and have to fix this. And then what you're going to want to do, this is actually the first area where breakage could happen. As you can see, there is these two tabs, and you're going to want to get it through these two slots there through, and of course this side here. So I do worry over time, will these tabs break at all? They haven't yet, so I'm happy with that, but I do worry they could possibly break over time. So you really just got to push those through like that, which can take a bit of force. As you can see, they're through the other side, and I don't know if you can see there's actually slots in there that just line up with that. It's not the most hard step, but I am a bit worried over time, will those tabs break? Now there is a slot and there is a tab, and that will just tab right into place, which can be a bit of a trouble. There we go. And there we have pretty much the entire front half of the car done. And now comes the worst part. So you're going to rotate at the waist, and here is where I have, I would say, the biggest problem with this figure. So you're going to want to open up the panel here, and there is, I would say, a major design flaw with this figure. So you cannot open up this panel that much, or it will cause, of course, a stress mark or a bend or something, a big problem with the plastic. I actually already do have a small minor nick there. It's, I wouldn't say, the biggest deal. I probably will get a second one of these because I'm honestly expecting something to break on this figure because it just doesn't seem like it will last that long. So when you get this figure, you really cannot open up that thing that far, which seems kind of stupid to me because if you have Dragstrip, his whole transformation for his leg, you could open up the panel to fold up the leg pretty much all the way, and you don't even have to. It's just extra clearance. So there is barely any clearance there for this leg, which seems kind of dumb to me, but you're going to want to hinge this, of course, and completely fold it up. But before you do, of course, unfold the other section or the other leg, which can be a bit of a trouble. Just open up that, there we go. And then, as I said before, you cannot open up this leg that much, or it could cause a mark there. So you just bend there, and then what I would suggest to do is tab the legs together. And here comes the hard part. So what you're going to want to do is pretty much get these car pieces around the doors and past, of course, to get to the other side. So just slowly get them around like that. Sometimes some things can untab. Just retab the car piece like that. Go to the bottom, of course, and then just make sure that door is there. Okay, and then these just go over. So the whole leg situation can be a bit of a trouble. Nothing has broken as of yet, but it can be a bit worrying at times. So if you want everything to be in perfect condition, I would probably just expect to buy two sometime in the future. But that's pretty much it for the transformation. You just fold the legs under, and here is the car mode. I think it actually looks super cool. Let's take a look at the detail. Here we have Wild Rider in his really cool looking vehicle mode. Let's take a look at the details. And I have to be honest, I think this is probably going to be my favorite alt mode of the Stunticons. This thing looks actually like super cool. Yes, the transformation is a pain in the butt in my opinion, but it is totally worth it because this car actually looks super cool. Definitely sort of a muscle car style. It actually actually looks super cool. So of course, nice Decepticon symbol at the front done in purple. It actually looks super cool with all this dark gray around the hood. And of course, the front wheels with that nice black and gun mode gray looks super nice with the red stripe all the way around towards the front, and of course the other side as well. Unfortunately, the back wheels are mushroom peg, but really nothing you can do about that. Of course, the windows are with that nice dark red plastic looking very cool. And of course, I really do like this whole section back here for the blasters, which I can show in just a sec how they store. And on the back, overall, very, very clean. Yeah, so transmission, as I said before, a huge pain, and do be aware, of course, of those two areas that I pointed out where breakage could happen, the tabs, and of course, there's very little clearance for folding the legs, and it's really annoying, unfortunately. So I would be aware of that. You know, you might have to get a second one, you might not. You just have to be careful every time you transform it. But if you don't care if your figures break, then I would just say by all means. But of course, there is the windows there, which look very cool on the side, or the mirrors, I would say, which looks very, very cool. So overall, definitely probably going to be my favorite vehicle of the Stunticons. I can already know it. Let's now get into, of course, the accessory storage, and you can just plug these on the back. So of course, there is ports there, so you can just plug these into place like that. There. And there we have the weapon storage. I think this looks super cool, just huge machine guns sticking out of the top. It gives me like huge Mad Max vibes. I don't know, it just looks super cool and armored. I also really do like how there is not unnecessary ports for the blasters. I'm really glad there's none here, because it would really break up the whole, you know, smooth look of the car. I'm glad there is just one area where you can plug them in. I know that could be as bad for people, because I know a lot of people like multiple ways of storage, but honestly, this is fine by me. Let's now get in one quick vehicle mode comparison. Here he is with Drag Strip. So yes, Drag Strip is still my favorite Stunticon, but of the vehicle mode, this one definitely just takes it. It's just such a cool looking car in my opinion. But two Deluxes, I think, that are pretty strong. Yes, there is some kibble in the robot mode, but I can easily overlook it, because both robot and alt mode actually look very cool, in my opinion. And you can actually get a better view, of course, of the accessories now, and how you can see they look quite similar, but honestly, storage, I think it looks better here than there, because it just kind of looks weird with the race car sticking out on the side, but they do look very cool next to each other. As you can see, lengthwise, they're pretty much the same length and size, but overall look very, very cool. So I will not be showing him combining with Menasor in this video. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do an entire video on Menasor when, of course, I get all 5 Stunticons. So there's 2 to go, of course, Dead End and Breakdown. I've actually ordered Dead End, so he should be coming, you know, of course, around December or January, I would say. So stay tuned for that, of course, on the channel. It'll be a little bit of a while. But, of course, whenever we get Breakdown, we can have the entire bunch, and I'll do a video on how every single figure combines with Motormaster and, of course, all their transformation. It doesn't really seem like a point now to show the transformation, because really it's only like 2 steps, and of course it's not even complete anyway, so I kind of want to do a big reveal of all the Stunticons combining with him and showing off all the details. But if you do want to see, of course, Motormaster with Drag Strip, I did show that in the Motormaster review, so go check that out. It should be in the Legacy playlist, so stay tuned. Of course, we're going to get the last 2 Stunticons hopefully very, very soon, and I think that'll look very cool in the collection. So again, let me know what is your favorite Stunticon that has been revealed so far. You can even include Denon if you want, even if you don't have it, or even if you do. But that's pretty much it for the alt mode. Let's now get into the final thoughts. For the Transformers Legacy Wave 2 Deluxe Class Stunticon Wild Rider. I think overall this figure is pretty good. There is a few problems here and there that I'll get to. So starting in the vehicle mode, I actually really love this car. I think this will probably be my favorite alt mode of the Stunticons. I just love the whole sleek muscle car sort of Mad Max style look to it. I love the gunmetal gray. I think it would just make this car a lot better. Is unfortunately the back wheels are mushroom peg. If that wasn't the case, I think it'd be a perfect vehicle mode. I actually really do like how the big pistol store on the back, that actually looks super cool. And also another nice feature is there's not unneeded ports for the accessories. Typically, most figures these days have multiple ways you can store the weapons, and honestly, this figure doesn't need it, because I think this is perfect storage and actually looks super cool. I'm glad there's not a huge gaping hole on the side of the door. I think that just looked bad. But overall, love the vehicle mode. Now, getting down to, of course, transformation, that is, I would say, the biggest problem with this figure. If you barely ever transform your figures, then it's fine for you. I actually transform them quite a bit, so it does matter to me how hard or how annoying the transformation is. I think they could have done better on the transformation, especially where the legs are concerned, because there is very little clearance for the legs to open and, of course, fold over to become the back of the car. There just isn't barely any clearance. If you do have drag strip, how his legs fold or transform, it's so much easier. There's an entire panel that pretty much folds down, so there is plenty of clearance to fold up the leg, and no breakage or stress marks or paint chipping would happen. In this case, unfortunately, it is. If you can see, of course, on the side, there's already maybe a few little small minor nicks there. I probably will end up getting a second Wild Rider because I'm assuming it will break sometime. It just seems like it's going to happen in some area on this figure, so I wish there was a little bit more clearance there. I really don't know why it's so limited. It doesn't seem like there would be a lack of space to have the whole leg open up fully so you could fold it in. I don't really know. Maybe they were just ran out of money or parts or something like that, but in that area, that is kind of a pain. Another pain is the front or the backpack section. Unfortunately, the tabs do look very thin and look like they could break. You're supposed to slide them through the small little slots to get into the car, and of course, when you want to transform it, you have to move the entire section up, which is another pain because you have to use quite a bit of pressure to move this entire section and get those tabs through those slots and make it easy. I can actually show you. You can get those tabs. You have to get them through that entire small little slot. It just seems too hard and too annoying. So hopefully, I actually did watch a review of Dead End, and it seems like his transformation seems a lot easier and simple. It's not the biggest thing in the world that it's a complex transformation. It's just there's a few design flaws that I think they could have done a little bit better. Just for an example, of course, Blitzwing, his transformation is quite complex, but there's no areas that could cause, paint chipping or stress marks or breakage. So you can have a complex transformation. It just needs to make sense and, of course, have enough clearance. Getting down to the remote, I actually really do like it. Yes, he does have quite a big of a backpack, but it really doesn't bother me. Again, my main complaint is really the transformation. I can easily overlook a big backpack because, like I said before, I used to have the Commander Wars version, and that one is, just terrible in comparison to this one. This one is a vast improvement, even with the complaints that I have of the backpack and, of course, the transformation. It's still a much better figure. Of course, getting down to articulation, it's pretty standard for a deluxe size figure. I kind of wish maybe there was some head rotation or head articulation, so of course it could look up and down. Unfortunately, there is absolutely none. It kind of seems like they could put in a hinge or a better ball joint so it could do that. It just seems kind of stiff. But overall, pretty standard articulation. Of course, you have an ankle pivot, waist rotation, arms are pretty standard. It does seem like he has a bit of lack of paint for the legs. I know that is probably pretty accurate to the G1 show. I'm pretty sure he was very plain in the G1 show. He was pretty much just red and black or gray. That was pretty much all it was. There was really no silver or blue or anything. It was very bland. And that's understandable. I just think there could be a little bit more color of the legs, maybe some silver or more red. I think that could have broken up all the dark colors. The accessories are good. They do look cool in the vehicle mode. It's just kind of seems sort of cheap to just re-release the same blasters that came with drag strip. I know with Dead End it's the same blasters, but there is a small minor sculpt change at the front of the barrel. It's like a big spike section, which actually looks pretty cool. So it would have been nice maybe if they slightly changed this to, like, maybe added a longer scope or a smaller scope or maybe no scope. They could have had just a simple pistol or something like that. I know why they're giving the same accessories, because I know they don't want to have some huge blaster that you have to store in some awkward place in the combined mode. They want to give you small accessories that you can easily store whenever you have the figure on Menasor, or of course you won't lose it or forget about it or something like that. So I know they want it to be easy to store whenever you want to have it in the robot or vehicle or combined form. So it is understandable. It just does seem a little bit cheap, but overall I think it's a pretty good figure. I highly suggest to get this figure. Yes, there's a few problems. Of the three that I have, it is probably the worst, but that's not saying much because I think it's still a very good figure. Motormaster and Dragstrip are very solid figures, so it's really just hard to beat such a good figure. And this is a good one. I highly recommend to get it. Advice, of course, have some patience with the transformation, because I wouldn't say it's the easiest. Like Dragstrip, you can transform Dragstrip in like 5 seconds. It's super simple. There's no problems or anything. This one does take a little bit more time, so do be aware of that. That's pretty much it for this review. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next.